Hey, everybody, welcome to an open door. This is Cindy. It's September 19th, and this is the class where we find truth everywhere, where we um, watch a YouTube video beforehand and then talk about what we've discovered and what is useful and helpful. Really, really glad that we're all here. And as is my tradition, I always tend to begin with a song. This song actually is the song I was going to play for Barbie yesterday, but we ran out of time. And it's Cortana, um, and it's called Already Home. And David knows the music. And so I'm going to put the recording on pause. So if somebody reminds me to hit play again, I'll be really useful. I would really appreciate it. The invitation while we're listening and watching this is to actually just relax into it. There's something just really loving and beautiful about this song. So let me do that first. That was for you, Barbie, but it was for me. Since me are one, it's for us. So I have just a few things to say, and then I'm going to open it up. Um, so if there's anything that I say in the moment that you'd like to add to or talk about, please let's just do that. You know, that's what we're here for. And my list has nothing, by the way, to do with NDEs. And I thought that was interesting. I listened to most of these 33 minutes a couple of times. And I got real still and I asked. And this list comes from that. Um, there are those here, Amy, particularly, that has a lot more expertise about near death experiences than I do. So I'm not even going to pretend. My experience was when I was 4 months old. I don't really remember it. The very first thing I wanted to say here was that when she described her experience for 3 to 6 months after her NDE, to me, it sounded very much like Barb, Bob Hartwood described his experience stepping into freedom. And when I'm in the global dyads and they talk about enlightenment experiences, it sounded like that. And I've actually had my own experiences of being for an extended period of time, days, without the thinking mind or the ego mind. And it feels like that, this this sense of openness and freedom and knowing that all, my experience after 9/11 that lasted I don't know how many days, was just this overwhelming experiencing of knowing that all was well. I couldn't even understand why people were afraid. Like I was looking at them going, why don't you know that we're always taken care of? It's just this and she even said it too. And Bob says it's not something you can point to it, but you can't fully describe. And so the very first thing I wanted to just state, and Amy and I talked about it briefly the other day. NDEs are one of the ways people tap into this experience. But for me, anyway, um, it leads to the same thing. Like it leads to this experience that she was pointing to anyway, this open experience of expansiveness. And when she said it's all love, we are put together by divine love. That's the way she recorded it. That's the important part for me. Um, Not that it's there when the body, getting there when the body stops functioning is a way to get there. And I like she said, you don't have to die to experience that. That's where I'm coming to. This idea that we don't have to die to get to that space or description of that space, and also this general understanding that it's accessible to all of us, and there's quite a number of different ways to sink into it. Sandra discussed it on that YouTube live, a month or so ago. That was the first thing I wanted to say. We can learn a lot by listening to people's experiences through NDEs and these other experiences. I just I felt inspired to neutralize it just a tad by saying an NDE doesn't make it's not special because it was an NDE. And if we think it is, then I could tell you about my couple of years at the Order of St. Luke and how a lot of the Christians in that group thought they were special because they were experiencing holy laughter and speaking in tongues and all sorts of mystical stuff that you only get when you're a Christian. That specialness is something we should just be aware of. The second thing on my list here is just this pointing that it is all love, and that's been showing up a lot in my writing. And actually, if it comes up later, I could even read some of what came up this morning in my writing, because it's so interesting, because personal love and divine love, they taste different, they feel different, they're very, 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 they're completely different. And in so many ways, what we call love as humans is really fear in disguise. And if this is where this conversation goes, I'll even read what came up, because maybe I will in a minute anyway, because it's a key part of my current, actually, spiritual practice, is recognizing that love isn't special, it isn't conditional, it isn't judgmental, a lot of the things that we study, but saying it and feeling it. Love is actually not what happens between me and another. So I loved how she pointed to the fact that love is what, we're glued together by this love. Love is what flows through us. Love is what we can rest into. That's very different than when a person says, I love my child, I would die for them. I love my child, that's why I worry about them. That statement in and of itself is so problematic. Since worry is fear and love cannot hang out in the same place. When we say, of course I'm worried about my loved one, I love them, there's so much wrong with that statement that I'm sinking into in a deeper and deeper way as I more and more commit to the work we're doing here. That's the second point that I wanted to highlight for discussion. The third, which also just is my life, right? It's not the big things, it's the intention and the little things. They sort of just skirted over that. And somehow it was a very interesting part of the video to me. And it's why I know that I'm not going to be taking their classes, because it seemed like she thought that was a big deal. But we've all had the conversations in this space. It seems to be how we mostly live our lives. When they were talking about being judged by how often you smile at the person having a bad day, or, being like, I'm sitting here right now and I can remember conversations I've had with Izzy when she was out walking the woods and there was a smile exchange and the whole world changed. But I, on a very deep level, understand that it's the intention and it's the little kindnesses and it's what we do when we don't even think about whether or not anybody's noticing that is the secret sauce. And they pointed to that in this video. Here's something that we may or may not talk about, and this is the way I wrote it in my notes. Um, they talked about it. They spoke about this with a sense of urgency. Um, and it's so interesting. I don't have urgency. I have crazy little things coming up about buying luggage to go to Mexico, which is interesting. It knocks and purifies things. But as far as a spiritual practice is concerned, I just do as I'm guided to do, right? It doesn't feel urgent. It feels now, right? Um, our collective consciousness is going through a transformation, and it's speeding up, and we as a species are evolving. Um, and just by definition, we're here, so we're doing something. We're doing our part, right? And resisting is painful, and it's becoming harder and harder, at least for me and the way I do life, right? They were talking about the urgency, and we have to do these things because, and I used to remember when I first spent time with Eckhart Tolle, this was a big deal in my space. He casually, literally just said, consciousness is rising. The human population is either going to rise and transform within it, or the human species is going to disintegrate and something will take its place. Back in the spaces where I was very, very attached to believing that I was human and this was a problem, that created a lot of fear and urgency. Now, more and more, we're recognizing that human is what we're doing, and there is a consciousness that holds us all, and we are evolving. And if we as a consciousness evolve into something that isn't human anymore, okay, but right now I love this human dance. And they were pointing to that. They were pointing to that when they talked about why there are more NDEs and how more and more people are being called to this work. And and yes, and let's do this work, but know that in like being pushed by a sense of guilt or urgency or because I have to or else, those feelings are problematic because they're fear based, and fear and love don't sit in the same place. And so the more we surrender into the love, the more we tend to do the most loving thing, and we are supportive in deeper ways. So I wanted to put that out there for conversation. And I have just two more things on my list, but I'm going to read what's in the chat first from Kendall. What I had concerns or thoughts about the attitude of specialness and that it turns into a business and promotion, everything being monetized in a commodity, it is a turn off for me. Yeah. So, talking about how it's not special. Do you want to wait to talk about your response, Amy? Or do you want to talk about it now? And then I'll do my last 2 points after.
Go ahead and do your 2 points, Cindy. Go ahead and finish up. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. The last 2 points are interesting. And it's fun because my very last point is stuff, Amy, you and I talked about when we talked yesterday. So it would be great to flow in. They clearly stated they were talking about the importance of community, and I just started laughing. So they're talking about a community getting together and doing whatever she was doing to teach people how to be more loving. Um, she was teaching from a different starting point than where I feel we are as a group, but she did talk about they I was fully in alignment, and we talk about it over and over and over again here, how valuable it is to come together as a community to do this work. And so it was nice that that was highlighted there. More and more we recognize that these high vibrational community get-togethers and talking about this work and holding each other in this loving space and allowing whatever it is we're doing is so valuable. crazy valuable. And I don't even like, I'm saying that not like where I'm right there, because I don't feel any of that. It there's so many things that are happening in an open door and in Cindy's life and the moving in and out. It feels like love is moving through us, bringing certain beings together to do certain things, and it comes together and it will grow, and it's gorgeous. Um, and so the pointing to the importance of a community, um, when you think about it, our teaching state that we're all one, right? So you can't dissolve um, this sense of boundaries without coming together with so-called others. That's the way it's hitting for me. Let's allow this loving space to bring us together the way it has, and within everything we're doing and talking about, we're dissolving the edges. Right, we're hanging out in the borderland, Rana. But that's how we dissolve the boundaries and allow this work to happen. But everyone from Dr. Hawkins to Awakening Together to even this video, speak to how valuable it is to come together in groups like this. And the last thing I have on my list is just a continual discussion. And I think we're going to have this discussion over and over and over again wherever I am, is the importance of the conceptual learning, but how none of it is going to take us where we want to go. It's direct experience. So we hold the container of conceptual learning. My buddy Joel Goldsmith calls it the word. We read the books, we study the teachers, so we get a conceptual understanding of what's possible. In some ways it's the same as seeing the tall ships. Once one of us sees the tall ships and says, this is possible, then we have the conceptual understanding that allows us to rise into seeing the tall ships too. But the secret sauce isn't the conceptual learning. So the secret sauce is showing up and allowing the direct experience. And that ended up on my list because I I was looking at this cynic. I was looking at them talking about how, like, I went through it, so you don't have to. I found a concern with that statement. It's a all right. So this is another conversation. It's a conversation I guess I had with Jenny Sheehan and with Amy yesterday and others. I am wary of anyone that calls himself a guru at this point. It's no longer part of my. We all have everything we need to know the truth of who we are is in here, and we share with each other. And some of us have the Izzy said last week, Cindy, you have a great way of speaking clearly the truth teachings. That's one of my superpowers. Everybody here has other superpowers. And I get concerned. Yeah, there's an inner guru. I get concerned when a teacher says, I have what you need. You don't have to suffer the way I suffered. If you just listen to me and do what I do and talk, then you'll be okay. That doesn't work for me anymore. Um, I appreciate when others share their experiences. Yeah, just like the song. But when they speak true to me, then I can hold them as a tether so that when my conditioning tells me that it's good to fear right now, I can remember the teachings and say, no, the fear is what's blocking the truth from me. But the actual work has to be done from the inside out of each of our separate selves. So that's everything on my list. I could, of course, talk for an hour, but those were the the big highlights that came through for me. And now I'm excited to see what happens next. Rana, eine Dega.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. I just have one pointing. I'm so enjoying listening to your synopsis and looking forward to others. But that little pebble idea, I have seen that over and over again. When I approach the woman at the line in the grocery store, or say I'm there, right? And somebody else is checking out, and just being very curious and watching the exchange between the two people. Not over the top, just maybe, whatever, a couple of scowls on the faces. And then when I get up to the counter, I give the person a big smile and I'm like, hey, and I say thank you and, hope you have a good day. And maybe they start to bring up a little chit chat about something non-consequential, and I just take that moment. And what is happening is sometimes I will like linger for a second as I'm putting my stuff in or whatever, and you can hear the tone in the cashier's voice with the next person. It's higher vibration. She's always like, hey, good to see you. The next person gets the treatment that seems to come through me. And I venture to guess that it would be the same if I was a scowling, angry, blaming person. Perhaps that treatment would then pebble over to the next person as well. So I just think it's important for me to recognize that being the light of the world, right, that there's an effect, a vibrational effect on wherever this presence is. And not to feel like I'm responsible for the world, but just know that what I'm passing along is I'm passing it along. Everybody is feeling the vibration. It's like when mama's upset at the house, everybody's upset. I try not to do that anymore, ruin everybody's day because I'm not getting my way. It's so ridiculous.
So can I play with you for just a second and then hand it over to you just said I'm not responsible for the world. One of the quotes that I contemplated this morning was from Sir Nisargadatta Maharaj. And the quote reads, the world has no existence apart from you. At every moment, it is but a reflection of yourself. So I'm just going to, you actually are responsible for your world. It's one way of looking.
Right. Responsible is an interesting word, right?
Yeah, response able.
Right, ability to respond to whatever is going on. And so what it is not my responsibility to change it. But
A lot of
like
these teachings tell me that the only thing that can, like, the world gets changed from the inside out.
Fair enough.
Hey, Izzy.
Oh, I guess my audio's on. Yeah, I came into this meeting just kind of overflowing with everything I wanted to say. And um, there's so much to say and there's nothing to say. It's really an interesting little paradox. But first of all, that song touched me so deeply. I almost started crying, and it made me think of somebody came into the presence of Mother Teresa once and they started crying, and Mother Teresa said to them, you're not crying because you're with me, you're crying because all of the love that you haven't felt all of your life, you haven't experienced all of your life, that is what you're crying about. And that's what I think, touched me so deeply about that song. I wanted to share a couple of days ago, I listened to it was a Rupert Spira little short, and he said, somebody asked, well, could you address this thing about it being an illusion? And um and he said, well, look at it this way. He said, if you go to bed at night and you look at the clock and you go to sleep and you have a dream, and in that dream, you go to India and you meditate and you meet these people and you have a guru. And then you come back from India and you meet somebody and you fall in love and you get married. And then you wake up and you look at the clock and only 1 minute has passed. And that really, really struck me. You know how sometimes I just love it how sometimes we can hear one little thing and it just goes straight to our hearts. And and that went straight to my heart. And since that, it's been a couple of days ago, since that time, I've had a far deeper knowing that 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 all of this is not real. It's a stage play. You know, as Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, the women and men are merely players. But wow, what a difference that is making in the way I see the world. You know, I can read a headline, you know, how the media grabs onto headlines and, you know, they find the worst stuff to pass on to us. And always before, you know, my heart has hurt a little bit and it still does a little bit, but now I'm saying, wow, this is part of the stage play. This is just what's happening now. This actually is part of the atonement. This is part of the correction that we've all come here for. And oh my God, what a difference that is making in my life to be feeling and seeing that at a different level. And I'm also well aware that this is a knowing that it's tenuous and it's fragile at this point, and I need to continue to reinforce it within my heart in order to be able to stick with it. And but I'm just something has shifted in a really deep way in the last couple of days in my life, and I'm loving it. And then about the video, I'll just mention a couple of things I wrote down that haven't been mentioned. Oh, Nancy called what happened, her NDE, a reset. And that's, you know, we all have our forms of resets. You know, my reset came when my son passed. And we all have these forms of resets of what, you know, what the universe brings us in order to soften our hearts and move into knowing that truly all is love. And so I want to mention that. Oh yeah, and then Carolyn said, you know, something's in the air, you know, and you were talking about that, Cindy, how she kind of put a, you know, you know, that we needed to really pay attention to that, or something bad might happen. And you know, Carolyn said, well, we've become, you know, narcissistic and, you know, self-focused and super narcissistic. Well, I don't see that as a bad thing. I think that it's the first step we need to take to learn that what we need to do is to go inside, to look inside ourselves, to stop looking out there. So that was my addition to something that Carolyn Miss said. Oh, and then in the end, Carolyn said the more action you take, the more the universe backs us. And I call this moving the energy. So for years I've been saying we just got to move the energy, to keep moving forward and keeping it all flowing. And anyway, and by the way, Cindy, that the word of that town is Ahihik.
Yeah, I
Ahihik.
pronounced it properly and then I lose it, but I'll get
Right.
it.
Yeah, I went down to visit the town once, but yeah, you'll love it.
Looking forward. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, should I just call on Amy? I like the fact that you haven't raised your hand yet. It's like it's disconcerting.
I'm practicing the presence, and I want truly, I'm not making fun of that. I really want to hear what other people have to say. I know what I think. I know what I feel. And but I think it's important for other people to be able to share as well if it moves them. If no one has anything to say, I can go on for an hour also, but I think other people should be free to really speak to this themselves. So I'm willing to listen.
Right.
Thank
So
you, Cindy.
Melanie, go for it, Melanie.
Oh, thank you. I so enjoy hearing from everyone. So insightful. And I always go back to the non-dual understanding in a way that we're not doing anything. It's all just happening. Yeah, I always go back to that. And the more we say it's my intention to do something, well, who's intending that? It's all just unfolding. And it's such a relief to know I don't have to, I'm not doing anything. So just let it, as the song said, let it be, let it go. So anyway, and I can see the story, as she talked about it, and I see it, it's really a story. It's all story. And I listened to this, after I finished this one, there was a second video where she went in great depth about the incident and all the details. And it was very interesting, but I had to step back and say, oh, this is just all story. It's just the mind getting engaged with what happened, but really it's we're not that. And I don't know, so that's what, and I also go back to Regina's four principles of God. And the fourth principle is, she said, look, the masters, and she talked about the angels and all that, and she said that's all not real. And I just go back,
Anything that's special is still dualistic.
yeah, it's all dualistic, and it's me and them, and doing it. Yeah. So I always try to go back to that. So thanks.
So, with you talking about that, I grabbed my writing from this morning, and I don't often read my contemplations, but I am inspired to read this one, and I would love feedback. Yeah. There are a couple of quotes, and I could read them later. And then I did a dyad. This is what happened after it was a triad. I wrote, thank you for the triad. And yes, let's kill off Cindy. That's what was in my head. It actually didn't come up during the dyad. Everything that was written during these like 12 minutes came from I read it to Diane Scott afterwards, and I'm looking at her, I'm looking at this going, it's brilliant for me anyway, but I don't know where it came from exactly. So it says, yes, let's kill off Cindy. Cindy is what? Well, it's 5 letters. What are letters? Well, they're shapes, right? CYNDI. They're just shapes that are given sounds and rules, and when brought together, symbolize combinations of sounds, which we call words. And then these words are assigned meaning that are then somehow used to communicate with self and others. And in the infinite invisible, is this form of communication needed? No, it's not needed. It's not useful. It's not even possible. Um, Words are used only in man's world, in the world of a me and another, right? Otherwise, we don't need these words. And when used as the only means to communicate with others in this dualistic world of men, or as the primary mode of communication, there is the result always of misperception, chaos, defense, and fear. Every human being, every person by definition, has their own coloring and flavoring and belief in words, right? So what is there to do with these 5 letters? CYNDI. The response was to neutralize, normalize, and impersonalize. That was very funny. So I went to inner wisdom at this point. I said, there is a belief that when you depersonalize something, you make it cold and uncaring and unloving. And I see clearly that that is insane. And there's a big exclamation mark, because by definition, personalizing is isolating, separating, and making special. It's focusing on, now, I've been listening to Joel, and lately Joel's been inviting people to nothingize, he calls it nothingizing things. And there's a quote in Sir Nisargadatta Maharaj this week that said, when you bring something to nothing, it results in no thing. Which I love. You dissolve the specialness. So by definition, personalizing is isolating, separating, making special, focusing on somethingizing. Love is not personal. It's not special. It's not judgmental. It's not isolating. In the world before naming, I never called it that before. In the world before naming, love is all there is. And where is the person minus the name? Where is the person minus the name? And what happens to me when Cindy is killed off? Why, I am free. I am flow. And for anyone that was hanging out with us last week, you'll understand it when I wrote, I am the dancer. Are you human or are you dancer? I become the dancer. Yes, please, let's kill off Cindy. So that's what the writing was this morning that I've been sitting with. And Melanie, while you were saying that, like the hair stood up on my arms, because it deepened the contemplation that came through me this morning. Yeah. And with that, Amy legitimately raises her hand. So let's see what happens next.
I'm not sure that it isn't a mistake to say that one can decide that the experiences that these fragments of the one have when they leave their body and enter into another state of consciousness can be understood at this time or replicated at this time by most of us. I'm not sure about that. In the long term, or actually now, I am sure that that is true. I think both sides of the coin have their truth. These experiences are absolutely a full coloring of the cloth. Izzy talked about her recognition that things are an illusion, and what a beautiful recognition. That is dipping the cloth into the truth and dipping the cloth into the truth over and over again until the cloth is fully covered. these experiences, it feels to me, are full immersions. And they're the fragment of the one that comes back to share with itself, which is all of us, is actually a more pure teacher in some ways, a more pure expression, because the certainty with which these stories, and they are stories, but they are also stories that oneness is telling itself. You just have to recognize the certainty, or as Kendall does, I love this, the cynic in her. But I think I'm sorry, my brain is fried. It is my experience with these experiences that they tell us, love is everything. And that we have, most of us, the vast majority, the vast, vast, vast majority of us have no frigging clue what that love is. We want to know, we desire to know, it's within us. It is our instinct to know it because it is us. But it's the same luggage confusion that stands in front of us and prevents us from knowing that love. And to some extent, it's also pondering what the letters in the name mean, because that's a mind thing. And that's great and fun if that's how you want to spend your morning. And I don't mean to piss anybody off here or anything. It's great and there's nothing wrong with it. But I think the direct experience of love that these people have and the direct experience of oneness is, in every single experience that I have ever looked at, and I've looked at hundreds of them, the one thing that comes out is the authenticity of the experience. It's not invited. They didn't ask for it. They didn't want it. It came to them because oneness wants itself, It came to every single one of them. If you had asked their ego self if they would have wanted to have this experience, 99.99% would have said no. So it's oneness showing itself. And, and Mel brought us right back to that truth, which I really appreciate. But it's there. It's just there in the moment right now. And the veil, the luggage veil is there for me. It's there for all of us, I've been talking to Barbara about it. I mean, the body thing is a great veil. These folks left their body completely. They're dead. They're not on drugs. They're not doing a deep meditation. It was a moment of grace for them that they did not ask for, because there's no person. There's no ego. The absolute gave itself to itself. And as she said, when she came back into the body and the veil comes down again, because you can't live in this world without having that veil in front of you in some form, or you won't make it to the friggin' refrigerator and be able to open the door. You won't be able to feed yourself. You won't be able to go to the grocery store, right? You won't be able to do any of that. So the veil comes down. But what she said is, I found it really interesting, because part of my explanation was, well, it must be technology that these things are happening again. It must be the technology. No, she said, no, it's the absolute sending itself into these places. Why did she go to Arizona? She didn't want to go. She just went. She followed the absolute. She followed her own true self because that's where the light was needed. You know, it's just the all that is calling itself home again. And that's what it is. And that's why I love these, because I love the authenticity. Yes, they're stories. Yes, they are. But I love the frequency of these experiences. There's a frequency to them that is palpable. And so I love you, Cindy. And I didn't mean to piss you off or mock you in any way. I love the way your mind works, and I love the way you share. And I'm tired of being tired, and I apologize for my own cynicism. It's not my secret sauce this morning. So please forgive me. I love you.
What am I forgiving you for?
Nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra.
Wow. Okay, so thank you, Amy. So I felt there were so many authentic truths in this video. I did recognize within 5 minutes that they were coming from a dual perspective, that it wasn't the non-dual perspective. I did recognize that. And yet, I'm not that, in these last months of hearing all about non-dual, sometimes it doesn't connect for me. And for example, in this whole discussion, to me, divine intelligence speaks through the stories. I don't have to say, oh, that's a story. It speaks through the stories. Obviously, incarnated through individuations of the absolute. So I was able to take the truths in, not worried about whether it was dualistic or not. And then some of those truths were so powerful to me. The truth of what we do here, even if we're in a character in a play, what we do here, what we think here, what we emanate while we are in this moment matters. That's what came through to me. It matters. It has the ripple effect that somebody spoke about. But that whether we are, what did she say, channelers of love or channelers of destruction, it matters. Because she said, because we are co-creators. So I have never related to the non-dual teaching of it's all just happening. It's all happening through me. I'm not doing anything. That's not been my experience. And I'm told to trust my direct experience. So here's what I know for sure. That when I'm walking through this world, experiencing it, loving it, when I am love, it's a much better experience for me, and it's a much better experience for everyone around me. Even if it's somebody I walked through the door and smiled at, or like we talked about smiling on the path. And it feels right. And so I can't fully separate myself from the character in the play. I have not been able to do that through these teachings. But I understand it. I understand it as a concept. It's all happening through. I love that thing you do, Cindy. It's all happening through each of you, each and me. And it matters. You talked earlier about the word responsibility. I don't know if that's the right word. I just know that there is an effect. There is an effect for how I identify, what I identify with, who I identify with as my being. It has an effect on this world that I'm in. So thank you all. And thank you, Amy. I felt that. I felt your love coming through that. And I was glad to be exposed to this. If somebody makes something commercial out of it, it doesn't matter to me. We're in this world. And I need to buy groceries while I'm in the world.
So yeah, I feel to
That's-
just remind us what we're doing in this class. If you've noticed, like I know that this is just week 2 at an open door, and but we've been doing this for what, a year or something. I don't know how often we've done it. There's a thread of truth that is running through all these different traditions. And so somebody asked me, oh, well, I was talking to my friend Yvonne this morning. She said, you still teach from the course, don't you? I said, I love the course, but I don't read the course every day. I don't read anything specifically every day. The truth has all these different colorings. And what we're doing here is we're looking at Course in Miracles teachers, we're looking at NDEs, we're looking at people that have awoken through Zen koans and all these different traditions. We did Richard Rohr, right? I mean, we did Christianity, we did Sufism, we did all these different traditions. And it used to be, as a quality engineer, I could tell you that was my job, to find what was wrong. Like this personality used to invest a lot of energy in telling you what was wrong with what somebody was saying. And a big part of what the training here has been through all these different videos is to step away from what the personality says isn't right about something and find what's the same, what's the truth, to find the truth thread. So what Amy shared, what Sandra shared, what everybody shared, I mean, I think we've all agreed that love flows through all of these teachings, right? And the little thing, like just the little things and the love. And man, I loved hanging out with her passion. Man, it was very, very cool. And the other thing was, it's like, I don't know why I'm here. And I don't know what I'm doing. I just keep showing up. And I ask to be guided. Then I do my best to follow the guidance. But that's what we're doing, finding truth everywhere, right? Is not saying this is better than that. Because each one of us is individuals. So we're going to find what works for us, and we're going to go with it. And if we're judging them, if we're judging another, if we're saying my path is better than yours, then I'll go right back to A Course in Miracles. I could tell you 10,000 different ways where the Course in Miracles tells you that judging another's path is not very good for me. So I hope that landed. Love us very, very much. And I didn't take any offense, Amy. So you could say I'm sorry, but I really don't. I don't know for what. And that's an hour. And
Thank you for holding space, Cindy,
yeah, I love
as
us.
always.
Rumor has it that Amy's teaching in the CFA Lives today. Are you doing that today?
I am going to do it. I wasn't sure whether I should or not, but I am going to do it. My mind is kind of fried. So, but you know, it's really funny. I'll tell you this. I was in my room, my bedroom, where I've kind of been, that's become my sanctuary since I don't want to give my husband COVID. And I was
Right.
watching
We are
TV.
still recording. I'm just letting we haven't officially unrecorded.
Okay. I was watching TV and Adam Driver was on. He was being interviewed for a play that he's doing. And I was asking the universe, God, all that is, should I do this class? Should I do it or should I hand it off to Bill? And Adam Driver says, I don't feel well right now, but I'm doing this interview because and I'm also going to go and do the play tonight. And if it's a disaster, I'll just experience the disaster. And I thought, holy moly, once again, that's how it works. Every time I'm surprised, every time. And it happens all the time. These are the miracles that you can't expect, you know? And that's why I still love the course, because it explains what a miracle is better than anything else. So yes, I am gonna
So
teach.
Amy's going to be teaching
Thanks for asking.
at 4 o'clock Eastern. And then if anyone wants to hang at 6 o'clock Eastern at Awakening Together, we just listen to Joel Goldsmith for an hour and then talk about it for a little bit. With that said, I'm going to stop the recording. Man, I love us. Here we go.